I'll bring the meeting to order of this Wilmington City Council pre-agenda meeting. I will have a roll call at this time. Mayor Pro Tem, are you here? Councilman Reinbach, you here? Councilmember Spears, are you here?
Here.
Councilmember Waddell, you here? Councilmember Andrews, you here?
Here.
Councilmember Joyner, you here?
Here.
And the chair is here. Everybody's here and accounted for. C1 is approval of the minutes. C2 is a resolution designating an official depository for city funds. C3 is a resolution authorizing the city to renew a 3-year contract with Evidence IQ for the purchase of ballistics IQ equipment in the amount of $307,497. C4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement to purchase two 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 work trucks from Modern Chevrolet LLC of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, in the amount of $102,656 through the North Carolina Sheriff's Association Purchasing Cooperative. C5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement to purchase 58 sets of firefighting coats and pants from NAFCO of Decatur, Alabama, in the amount of $220,886 through the NPP Gov Government Cooperative Buying Agreement. C6 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a 3-year lease agreement with Stevenson Hendrick Honda Wilmington in the amount of $88,090 for the lease of 4 vehicles to be utilized by the police department. C7 is a resolution conditionally releasing drainage easements within the River Lights single-family phase 7, Section 1. C8 is a resolution of the City Council of its intent to close an unimproved portion of South 23rd Street in the city of Wilmington, North Carolina.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we're going to ask that C8 be removed off consent agenda and moved under the resolution section since it involves a negative recommendation from staff.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Public hearings, PH1, and it's an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 2.39 acres of land located at 1320 Independence Boulevard from R15 Moderate Density Single Dwelling District to ONI CD Office and Institutional Conditional District for Commercial District Mixed Use Development. PH2 is an ordinance amending the official zoning maps of the city to rezone property containing 10.27 acres of land located at 120 Switchyard Road from MFMHLCD Multifamily Residential Density District Medium High Density Legacy Conditional District to MD10CD Medium Density Multi-Dwelling Residential District Conditional District for a 60-unit residential development. PH3 is an ordinance amending the official zoning maps of the city to rezone property containing 0.57 of an acre of land located at 508, 510, 512, and 516 McCrae Street from CB Community Business District to R3 CD Medium High Density Mixed Residential District Conditional District for 2 triplex structures. Ordinances. 01 is an ordinance making supplemental appropriation to the Public Improvements Equipment Fund from a New Hanover County ABC Board grant in the amount of $50,000 for the purchase of 3 e-bikes, 1 Burla IVE toolkit, and 3 decibel meters. Yes, sir.
I would like to ask that somebody on the senior staff send a thank you note to the ABC board. They send us some large amounts of money, and to date, they've not ever received any kind of acknowledgement or thank you from the city.
R1 resolution is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a New Hanover Community Endowment Grant in the amount of $2,758,200 for a 3-year workforce housing voucher program. And then reports, RP1's reports of council's evaluations committee. And the chair will be giving that report. Yes, sir.
I'd like to go back to, if you could, the first public hearing.
PH1?
Right.
Yes, sir.
We've all received some communications from citizens. Is there anybody up here that has any questions or anything? I mean, you could prepare the staff for what you're going to ask. Just making that comment. If not,
Well, I do have a,
Tomorrow night, then.
well, no, I have a question in respect to the alleyway, in the back. I've had some, commentary from some of the citizens back there that have indicated that that alleyway, which seems to be pretty narrow, has some significant flooding issues in the middle of it, and this will exacerbate the situation there. Could you give me a little bit more insight into how that alleyway is going to be taken care of and who's going to take care of it and how we're going to alleviate the flooding in that area?
I can't speak to the flooding. We do have stormwater staff here. I might ask them to come up afterwards.
Sure.
The alleyway, the applicant is proposing to add additional right-of-way to that alleyway to widen it for two-way traffic. It would have to be improved to alley standards at that point for the portion of the property that abuts that alleyway.
So that would be curb and gutter?
I believe alleys are just pavement and header curb, but again, engineering is here if we want to get specifics on that.
Okay, and do we know the distance, would it be the entire length of the alleyway or just a portion of the alleyway?
It would be the portion that their property fronts, which is about a little over half.
Okay, can someone talk to me from Stormwater that has any idea as to the flooding that takes place there? Or if you had any kind of comments over the years from any citizens there that have been talking about it? Doesn't matter. Bring me somebody up here.
I'd ask Rob Gordon to come up.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning. As far as the flooding in the alley goes, they would be responsible for improving the drainage. You know, obviously the asphalt and the drainage adjacent to their portion, but they would not be responsible for improving the portion of the alley that's not adjacent to the site. I'm not aware of any historical flooding issues to the, what is that? To the, I guess, plan right of the project. But again, if there were any adjacent to the project, that would be dealt with through the TRC process.
Okay. And right now, how does that, the drainage on that alleyway, is it, I guess there's a ditch back there?
There's a ditch on the planned north side of that, of the alley. And they're proposing to drain into the entire paved portion of the alley adjacent to their site is going to drain into their new stormwater control measure, that wetland that's down by Independence Boulevard. The ditch that will remain will be improved to the extent that it can be. I mean, there's driveways and such out there, and will capture only the drainage from the lots to the planned north.
Okay. And I would imagine, and maybe someone can talk to me about the trees. I guess the crosses on here that we see, I guess that's the tree survey that had to be completed.
Mr. Gordon, hang on a second.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. The applicant's proposing to save all the significant trees on site, and I think they're proposing to save as many protected trees as possible. And then what is shown in the plan and on their landscape plan shows you the extent of their tree save on site.
So give me the difference between if we went with this particular plan in respect to the tree mitigation issue, and with one that it just goes single family. What would happen then?
If this was single family, they would potentially subdivide the lots to meet the minimum lot dimensions of an R15 district. And once a building permit is pulled for that site, there is no tree save requirement.
So anything could be taken off?
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You need to turn on your microphone, sir.
Excuse me, I usually talk loud enough. In your estimation, with regard to what you were just discussing about the stormwater and the alleyway is what is the width of it now? Is it like 10, 12 feet?
Yeah, that's right. It varies throughout the length of it, but it's as narrow as 10 feet,
Yeah.
but I think it sometimes is as wide as 15, so it's
And
between 10.
is there a proposed change to that?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be, yes, they're going to be widening the alley to city standards, which would be 16 feet of asphalt plus the header curb.
Plus what?
The header curb, that concrete ribbon on the outside, so that's additional width.
Okay, so it appears to be, it's just going to be a better alleyway for everybody. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, adjacent to their site, it will be a widened, improved alleyway, yes.
Okay, and will there be like entrances for the single-family property owners that front Hawthorne? Will they have like a curb cut or I know there's not a curb, but will there be like driveways going into their driveways? Or,
What they are proposing is the alleyway will extend directly to the right-of-way line. I mean, the right-of-way is very narrow right now, and they are proposing to widen it additionally, but the asphalt will stop at the right-of-way line, but then they will have concrete driveways at least 20 feet deep beyond that, so there will be ample parking on the private side of the alleyway.
okay, thank you, Mr. Gordon. Sure. Brian, I didn't have anything else.
Mr. Waddell?
I do have a follow-up for probably Mr. Gordon. Just with regards to the expansion and improvement of the right-of-way, make sure I'm reading this correctly, kind of the top left portion and then the top right portion, 10 foot of right-of-way to be dedicated. So that's the applicant and the property owner dedicating 10 feet of property to the city as an expansion of the existing right-of-way to kind of make it, how wide across for the whole thing?
They're proposing I believe a 25-foot total right-of-way width along their property frontage. I believe is it 15 now?
But the plan shows 15 existing right-of-way, is that correct? And then additional 10 feet of right-of-way is going to be dedicated?
That's
Do we have a
correct.
pointer? Can we point to that?
So this shows you what the existing right-of-way line is
Yeah,
right there.
15-foot existing, but then there's the 10-foot of
And then
right-of-way. And is that the gray portion that we see? Is that color-coded there?
Gray is the asphalt.
I think the gray is the additional improvement.
Okay. But that 10-foot of right-of-way that's shown twice, that's going to be dedicated from the applicant to the city to expand the right-of-way from 15 to 25?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Question. Yeah, I read a lot of the comments. The applicant originally was going to do more houses, but he's knocked it down some, correct? You know, more.
I might have to defer to the applicant as to what his original proposal was. It might have changed after his community meeting.
Okay, and I was also, had a number of people ask about the alleyway, and from my understanding, the alleyway is going to be better because it's going to be 2 ways instead of 1.
It's going to
Right.
be built to city standard, which would allow for 2-way. I mean, it's still an alleyway, so it's tight, but it's
Sure.
going to be 16 feet of pavement and then header curve on either side of the alleyway.
Okay, and then this project meets the need of middle housing, right?
It does missing middle housing. The townhomes would be considered, yeah, this project would be considered missing middle, yes, sir.
Okay, and if we didn't do this, then as a R15, what could they put on there?
I believe, it depending on how it lays out, 7 or 8 single-family lots. They could potentially have single-family homes and then ADUs, so 16 units.
Okay, and you mentioned that if they did that, they're not obligated to take care of all of the trees that are being taken care of now.
If it's single-family, we have an exemption in the code for any single-dwelling residential lot that's under an acre. If they pull a permit or there's an existing home there, they're exempt from our tree preservation requirements.
Okay, and then my last question, oftentimes when I read these projects, people complain about like traffic and transport, people coming in and out. Is this project handling the traffic?
A TIA was not required based on the number of units here. It did not trigger a TIA. When we evaluated this, we looked for proximity to services. It's on a transit line on both Oleander. I believe a transit line runs on both Oleander and Independence. I know for sure on Independence. It's across the street from large amounts of commercial services. There's a cross-city trail that runs across the front of the site. So we evaluated, looked on it. There is a traffic impact, but there's a lot of alternative means of transportation in this area as well.
Okay, thank you.
That's a question. You mentioned under the R15 designation and development, the trees would be exempt from our standards regarding cutting or whatever. Talk to me a second about stormwater. What would be required of single-family
I
residential?
might need to bring Mr. Gord back up.
Good.
I think it's exempt, but.
He's in the house.
With respect to stormwater, if it was single-family, the trigger for that is based upon the land disturbance. So that would ultimately be up to New Hanover County. It is evaluated as a common plan of development, so if they came in and subdivided into, how many lots did you say? 7 or 8 lots, it would be evaluated, the land disturbance would be cumulative across those 7 or 8 lots, so probably would still be triggered, but that question can't be answered and you know, can only be answered by the New Hanover County.
But I guess I'm not driving at anything, I just want to be clear on it. With this type of construction, we certainly have very set standards that have to be met,
Yes, sir.
whereas with R15, it would be kind of fall into the county to,
We would still review the improvements, but they wouldn't have the same level of infrastructure requirements.
thank you, sir. I think I understand.
Anybody else? Yes, sir, Dave.
I have one more question about the alley. So this is only in front of where the property owner or where the development is. It doesn't continue all the way down the alley. I think there's one more residence on that alley, or maybe 2.
Yeah, I'm not certain how many residents there are, but that is correct. The improvement of the alley does not extend further down. The other half of the alley will not be improved as with this project.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
We'll confirm the number of residents on both sides of that alley for tomorrow night.
Sir, Mr. Waddell.
Do we have the capability to pull up the actual packet that we'll be reviewing tomorrow night? If so, can we go to page 14? Yeah, there we go. So the little red X's, I don't know if you can read it there, but the little red X's, yep, they indicate key crossing improvements and said see notes on next page. I don't think I could find the notes on the next page, but what are those? Can somebody just overview those crossing improvements and how those are going to be?
I don't know that there's any specific crossing improvements with this because the intersection already contains the crosswalks and the signalized pedestrian
Okay,
crossings.
so that was a screenshot from maybe before
Yeah, yeah.
before those
Yes, sir.
crossing improvements had been put in, but they've been put in since then.
I believe that, yeah, we'll have our traffic engineer here tomorrow night to confirm that. We can probably confirm that before the meeting. I believe all those crosswalks are in place and the ped signals are already in place.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Chad?
We do have 2 presentations for you. Mr. Dave Mays, Public Services Director, is going to give you an update on the plan to replace the draperies for City Council chambers.
Good morning.
Morning.
First of all, just to acknowledge why we're here, why are we talking to you about draperies? Well, first of all, this is y'all's room, and we certainly don't want to do anything inside this space as significant as changing the draperies without your knowledge. So we're here to provide you with some information and some recommendations for what we're going to be doing. Secondly, these draperies have been in place for well over 20 years. The operability of them is compromised at this point. They're very difficult to operate the way they are configured. And at times, staff has actually come in here and we found them laying on the ground. So the hardware needs some attention as well. These draperies also have a recurring maintenance expense, and that is to apply a fire retardant application. It's required about every 5 years, and we're in need of that now. And before we decided to do that, we wanted to make sure that we address this concern with you. This is also something that we have been planning for. We were actually planning for it before the inception of potential purchase of the Skyline Center. We put this on hold because we didn't know what was going to happen. So after that decision was made and council was decided to continue to meet in this space, we felt like it was important to go ahead and get this done. It's also, we also need to recognize that the Thalian Hall folks schedule what goes on in this room outside of normal council meetings. And the current situation, the operability of the drapes, put some limitations on their ability to schedule certain types of events. It's helpful to allow light in. It's also helpful to keep UV rays and cold air or hot air out. And we're going to fix all of that with what we're going to be recommending to you. Lastly, you might be wondering why your colorblind Public Works engineer is up here talking to you about an interior design issue. And believe me, it's not really where I want to be. It's way outside of my comfort zone. So thankfully, we've been able to recruit and hire Ms. Jennifer Craner of Big Sky Interior Designs, and she's going to come up and actually give you the bulk of the presentation. So I would ask her to come on up.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here to talk about the replacement of the drapery in the window shades here. So the first slide, I guess we've pretty much gone over. Thank you, Dave, so much. So didn't realize it had been 20 years. That's a long time. That's probably the last time I was here presenting in front of you all. So here we go. So we are in need of new window treatments for functionality as well as aesthetics for this particular space. So we can go on to the next slide. So the current drapery, as you know, is deteriorating quite literally. Back in the day, we had to use residential materials and then have this fire retardant treatment put on them. And now we have other options moving forward. The current solar shades are unsightly and inoperable at this moment in time. What we're thinking about is not only the interior of this space and how it looks and performs for future years, but also how this historic building is seen from outside. And so from outside, currently, it's fairly unsightly with the condition of the shades and how the windows are treated differently. As Dave mentioned, we will no longer have that reoccurring maintenance cost because we can use commercially rated FR materials and still get that same look with digital treatment of color and pattern within the drapery fabrics that we would be using. So yes, the current drapery is cumbersome and outdated. We can improve upon that as well, which I'll talk about. Noticeable disrepair from street view. And then, yes, it's just time for a change, aesthetically as well as functionally. So here are some pictures, although here we are in the room. You don't really need to see all of these, but you can see the condition when you open the drapes in the upper right-hand corner. You know how the archway was treated and how that's kind of falling short these days. And as Dave mentioned, everything is just old and needs to be replaced. This is just evidence, you all have seen this before, but literally the materials that are currently here have started to sort of just rot over time because of the silk that was used earlier on. And again, how important this building is in the fabric of the Wilmington community. We couldn't be happier to be working on this project and do what we can with this particular project to really enhance the exterior view and recognize the significance of this building. So from the street view, this just gives you sort of the bird's eye walking around the building and what you see, the disrepair there. The image on the right-hand side is the image of the window that is currently within the Thalian Hall Theater. So we are not only suggesting that we replace the window treatments in this room, but the adjacent rooms so that everything in the exterior will be the same. Okay, this gives you a great snapshot of what we're going to do. So the drapery panels on the sides will be stationary panels. The functionality is going to come with window film that would be on the top arch, so we'll no longer have a solar shade up there. And that will look very similar to the solar shade that we will be putting underneath that from the street view. The horizontal bar in the middle is a dual function housing, so that we will have a solar shade closest to the window for street view, and you'll see what we're recommending for that. And then on the room side, we will also be having a room darkening solar shade that can come down for that function of keeping the heat out and the cold weather out and the heat in during the winter. So, so the drapery panels, again, will also be on these other windows. The image on the left-hand side is the window that's currently behind the dais. So we will have just an operable drapery there as well, so that the light can be kept out and screen shown as you are doing right now. And then the window in the back also, where we have the stair overlook, we're proposing solar shades with, or I'm sorry, just a decorative drapery there that can be drawn as well. And then there are 5 total windows, 4 in the City Hall, 1 in the Thalian Theater that I mentioned. And again, that will help keep the street view look cohesive. And the theater window will have a blackout shade also, and from the inside, so that will keep the theater in good working order. So the benefits of new window treatments: we're going to improve the use and function within the City Council room. Light filtering solar shades and frosted film within the arch, as I mentioned, with blackout shades to provide the thermal insulation and the light protection on the inside. And all materials will be inherently fire retardant and will reduce the cost for retreating and maintenance as we've had to spend in recent years. And it will be a transitional design, so we'll show you a little bit more about what we're proposing in terms of the design. So the functionality, we're going to increase view and light protection. Stationary drapery panels will be inoperable. Solar shades we've talked about. We are recommending a 5% openness solar shade. So those of you who have experience with solar shades, there are different gradations of letting light in and being able to see out. 5% is kind of right in the middle there, so that even when the solar shades are down and will help reduce glare coming into the space, you will see what's happening outside of this room, which is a huge improvement day to day when you have events in here during the day. And then, of course, blackout shades for thermal and light cancellation for meetings. Okay, getting into the design aspect. We have basically 2 different designs that we've been considering. Both designs will help sort of shield the window film from the interior while providing a nice decorative treatment within the room. They do the same things, but they're just designed differently. Option number 1 has a little bit more of a fluid top treatment with the stationary panels coming down on each side. The option number 2 has a little bit of an overlay. It's kind of a nod to traditional while still being transitional in its design, and again with the inoperable drapery panels coming down. We are proposing to keep the colors a little bit more monolithic with a decorative tape that will bring a little more color and pattern into that design in both designs. All right, the next page. And now you get into our color scheme. So this room, how it exists currently, how it may exist a few years from now, we have been taking all of those things into consideration. It's got a strong color palette here currently, and even if the walls were to lighten up, we feel like both of these designs could work well moving forward. The difference between color palette number 1 and number 2 is really how we're using color. So color palette number 1 it's a little tricky to see on the screen, and by the way, we did bring a design board should you want to go see the actual kind of color direction and some fabrics that we're considering. But anyway, the color palette number 1 goes from a greenish hue, which is lighter than what you currently have, to a couple other shades of a green that would play upon each other, with a little bit of red brought in, and that would be in the decorative tape that you can kind of see off to the right. So, and then the fabric that's up top in the archway does have a little bit of pattern to it, while the draperies that come down on the sides are more solid colors. Color palette number 2 brings in a little bit more of a transitional element with lighter drapery panels that are not in the green family. It's actually sort of a warm gray, beigey gray mixed in with the greens with the same decorative tape. We are recommending that particular color palette just because of aesthetics as well as this particular drapery design. So we are bringing that recommendation to you, but open for any other questions or comments on that. All right. Budget. We have reached out to many of our vendors to establish what the budget should be. We worked with a solar shade provider to get costs as well as drapery workrooms. This project will clearly need to be bid, but here we are with the budget. So we are anticipating the removal and replacement of the work to be between $115,000 and $140,000. We anticipate the final cost to be within this range. Of course, after the bids are received and the final fabricator selected, we'll know for sure. The solar shades and the blackout shades, just to give you a breakdown of costs, we anticipate to be between about $40,000 and $50,000. And then the drapery itself would be between $75,000 and $90,000. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
You mentioned the fire stuff that you spray on now. What does that cost us?
I believe
It's about anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 every 5 years or so.
Okay, and then you also mentioned that you were planning to do this anyway.
Yes, we, and I apologize, I neglected to mention, we have the funding within our building maintenance capital funds right now.
Okay,
So,
okay. I was wondering how we were going to pay for it, but you do have the funding already in pocket?
yes, sir,
Is that right?
we do.
Okay. All right, awesome. And this,
Question. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
okay,
My
and
bad.
this building is also used for like filming and stuff, right? Has the curtains been a problem? And I know we do need to do them. I mean, there's no ifs, ands about them. You can look at them and see they're like really falling apart. But has that been a deterrent for maybe people not using this room? I'm just asking.
I'm not sure I can give you a direct answer to that question, but I can say that the improvements to operability would advance the ability of the Thalian folks to be able to use this for things that they can't use it for now, or they don't. Some people may choose not to use it for now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I got a question, Mr.
Mr. Spears, I think you were next.
Thank you. So my question is this: aren't we moving? We're moving, right? So
Yeah, well, I think at some point in time, we're going to move, but I think the price tag on that is pretty considerable, and I don't think anybody wanted to make that decision till after the budget, and then we had to make some adjustments to the tax rate, and then we wanted to see the final price tag on that. So irregardless, I think that we're going to have to replace the curtains anyway, one way or the other. Is that correct?
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was just one
We
part
need-
of my questions.
We'd either have to replace them or continue to live with them and continue to have that recurring expense for a deteriorating product. Eventually, they will have to be replaced.
Gotcha. Okay, so eventually it would have to be replaced, and we're paying for something, the same price for something, whether it's in good shape or whether it's deteriorating. I understand that. I'm just shocked into. I guess I understand that we already have the funding in place to take care of this expense, But when we talk about Thalian and their ability to sell the room or not to sell the room, you know, it just brings back to my mind the relationship that we have with the Thalian Hall Association. We don't get any of that money that Thalian makes, right? We're just sponsors as it relates to the Thalian Hall Association.
I think that, Chad, could you answer Mr. Spears' question, because I believe that they maintain the hall for us. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
I'd defer to Jennifer Moretti in terms of the distribution of the funds, if there are, that come in from Thalian and come to the city.
Sure. Jennifer, can you answer the question for us, please, sir? Ma'am?
Good morning. I'll have to get that information and bring it back to you and look at it and see what they are paying and responsible for with their agreement, as well as if the city is retaining any of their fees for the maintenance of the building.
I do know that, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, but I think that when you purchase a ticket to go to a function here at Thalian, there's a certain amount of money that's set aside for maintenance. That was set up, I guess, several years ago in the aftermath of the remodeling, and one of the positions that the city took, I think at that time, was because we're going to have to upfit and redo and remodel every so many years, and the age of the building, just like we do at Legion Stadium and other places, there's a fee that you pay when you come in to help maintain this building in one way, shape, form, or another. Now, if you have significant costs of remodeling, like we did with the hall when we had to tear the floor out, new seating and lighting and all that, obviously it'd be a drop in the bucket. But for the most part, the fee is to help maintain issues like this.
Yes, sir. I recall the same, but before I speak to that, I want to make sure what the agreement currently states, and then I'll bring that back to you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Mayor, that's a good point. Using a good example, using Legion Stadium, because I'm on that commission, and I can tell you, we've had to fight for fairness as it relates to the upkeep of Legion Stadium, because we found out that we were carrying the bulk of that expense as it relates to that agreement with not only the county, but the school system as well. So
Yeah.
I would just,
Yeah.
I would love to see that information emailed to me or put in my box somewhere, just to see the financial agreement or financial relationship that we have with the Thalian Hall Association, whether it's a fee that's on the ticket or a percentage of how many shows that, which I know we don't, I imagine, I wouldn't say I know, I'm confident we don't get any money from the shows, but you could always prove me wrong.
Well, I think we need to have that all share with the entire council so that everybody's brought up to speed as to how that relationship is with Thalian Hall for the performing arts here, as to the money they receive, how they maintain the building, what's the contractual agreement between us and Thalian. I know that we have 2 new members of council, and for us that have been here for quite some time, I even forget what the entire agreement is. We have a lot of agreements, so I just want to make certain that we have that at our disposal so we can all take a look at it. Celeste, did you have a question real quick?
Yeah, I just wanted to know the recurring costs. You said every 5 years it needs to be treated for fire retardant purposes, and what is the recurring cost for that?
Oh, it's somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000.
Every 5 years?
Correct.
Thank you.
David, you had a question.
Well, what's your specific request of us today?
There is not a specific request. This is information sharing. We simply want to make sure that you're aware of what we're doing, and before you walk in here and see a whole bunch of new drapes, that you knew that we were going to be doing that beforehand.
What's the timeline on the current drapes needing retreatment?
We do not have that schedule. We're withholding doing that in exchange for actually replacing them. So we won't retreat these existing drapes. After today, we will start the process to finalize our bid documents and go down that road to get the draperies replaced.
After today, we will start to finalize the bid process, but we still need the information that we've just requested before we, so you'll bring that process back to us for approval. I assume that we would need to approve the city manager entering into a contract. maybe not.
At this cost, it would probably have to come back to city council before award.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Waddell?
First, thank you to Big Sky and the work that you've already put into this, and my comments are not directed at any way towards the work that you're doing, that you were asked to do and hired by the city to do. I could pull up the budget, my budget notes from our last budget cycle and keep everybody in this room until 5 o'clock with what we could do better with $140,000. I'm adamantly opposed to this. We've got important facility expenses at a building that we just acquired. We increased the tax burden on the citizens. We've got Wilmington Fire Department, Wilmington Police Department, serious needs, and to throw $140,000 drapes up in a room that we're not going to be using in a couple of years is a real let them eat cake mentality that I'm opposed to, and frankly a little bit upset at. So I know you said this money is already budgeted, already allocated. I guess could we shift that money to some of the major facility improvements that we have at the Skyline Center?
Our building maintenance CIP is dedicated to doing maintenance for any and all of our facilities. The Skyline Center is set up separately it's a separate kind of entity within the budget. So I'm not sure I know the exact answer to that, but if we didn't spend this money replacing draperies, we'd have to spend part of it to get what we have treated, and then we could spend it somewhere else.
I guess my question was, will we have the opportunity as this council to make that decision, or has that decision already been made? Is the train left the station, Chet?
You will have an opportunity to vote on the final approval of the contract related to pursuing whatever options up there.
Okay.
Because it exceeds the manager's authority to.
Thank you.
Ms. Mayor, well, if it's a matter of us voting, it's a yes or no vote. So I don't want staff to spend time creating a proposal and then it just gets voted down and then there's nothing. So my feedback is that if we have, this is David Joyner, this is not me making a motion or anything. This is my feedback for staff to consider. If we have a timeline on when these have to be retreated so that they stay in code or they stay in compliance with some specific policy that we have to follow, then let's take a look at that and consider what the $10,000 is going to get us through this 5-year period so that we can get over to Skyline. But I'm on the board of directors for Thalia now, and when I walked in this morning and looked through this and saw the $140,000 for drapes that we're not going to be using, that we will not be in this room for in 5 years, my eyes popped a little bit.
Well, I just want to make certain that, and I guess at some point in time, Chad, y'all going to bring back to us so we can have some understanding, a clear understanding as to what is the cost to move to the new building, and maybe you already have that number, as compared to what we might have to spend here to maintain the drapes.
At the next council meeting, we'll have a full update with the design plans and estimated costs related to all aspects of the upfitted Skyline.
All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
What kind of, I mean, certainly you got to have some kind of a timeline in your head as to when we'll be able to go down there and work out of that building. What is that?
It's essentially determined by the appropriation of the funds to complete the upfit. It's roughly a little less than $6 million turnkey for all aspects of the project, including redoing council chambers, the third floor, the first
Wait a minute,
floor.
no, wait just a minute. I'm talking about what does it take to get us down there? I'm not talking about the third floor, the 12th floor, any of that, Chad. I'm talking about council chambers.
That's around a $2 million portion of the project.
How far along are we?
We are at 100% design plans. We should get final construction plans in the next week or so. That's the reason we're presenting them to you at the next council meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
I got one more question.
Yes, sir.
So I understand Councilman Robert Bart said he doesn't want to hear anything about third floor or any other floors, but I think Councilman Waddell makes a good point, and I think everybody has made good points. My question is this: for me, one of the selling points for moving to 929 was the vault. and the completion, for the clerk and that floor. So how far along are we with that part of the process, Chad?
Again, we're at 100% design plans. We should have sealed plans within the next week or so. We're working closely with Monteith. They've done a soft bid on the project, and we have that ready for the presentation next week. I can provide that via email, the information that I've got thus far. Everything is ready in terms of the design of the building.
Okay. Well,
It's all on the
I'll
same
just come-
timeline.
I would just come out on the record and say, I'd rather see us spend $150,000 at 929 at the Skyline Center before I see us spend it on drapes at Billion Hall. Because if you squint, the drapes don't look that bad.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, the second presentation we have this morning will be from Ms. Amy Beatty regarding parking issues at Olson Park.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. If I may, Mr. City Manager, my department oversees the agreement with the Alien Association, and we're actually going to be bringing that agreement to you at one of your September meetings. We were in the process of making several amendments to the existing agreement because we moved out, and we want to gradually shift more of the maintenance costs and items and responsibility to Thalian over a gradual period so that they can build that into their budget. But just wanted to let you know that since you were discussing that. And we do not receive any revenue distribution from Thalian. So with that, I am here.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome, Mr. Spears. I am here to talk about, to re-engage City Council because we have communicated to you several months ago about a plan to limit parking by students attending Laney High School at Olson Park because that activity has become quite disruptive to the park. Just as a refresher for everyone, this park is co-owned by the city and the county. The city is responsible for 100% of the operations of the park. It's one of our busiest parks. The activity out there 5 to 7 days a week, practices, leagues, tournaments, etc. And it's also home to the Miracle Field, which is a fully accessible facility. We host Special Olympics activities, programming from youth all the way through veterans, wounded warriors, etc. And we are also at the end of a design phase for the completion of phase 2 of Olson Park, which was a Parks Bond project that will add pickleball courts and a multi-purpose field and an accessible walking trail. Here's a map. You can see how close the park is in proximity to Laney High School. The next couple of slides are some photos depicting the amount of parking that's taking place at the park. It has grown over the past few years to where we're seeing at least 70 cars out there during the day. The photograph that you see on the right-hand side is this area, if I can track on here, right here. That is actually utilized by New Hanover County stormwater vehicles to maintain a creek and a ditch in that area. And cars are no longer able to park where they are in that picture on the right because the county has put some physical barriers in there to limit that. So that has pushed the cars into the parking lot itself. All of those vehicles are high school kids. Those are not park goers. On the right, you can see some of the behavior that we're having to endure with the kids up there. As the mother of an 18-year-old son, I know they're not always the most responsible drivers. We see a lot of speeding, reckless driving, and they've also generated a lot of litter. While this is a staffed park, we have 2 grounds techs that are there every day. They're trying to take care of the fields, and they just don't have the time or the training to monitor the parking lot. So we have had quite a few conversations with Laney's principal and assistant principal over the past couple of years. We wanted to try and be good neighbors, and we allowed the practice to continue for as long as we could, but we just can't mitigate the behavior. We did offer to the school system to allow the kids to continue to park there if there was some security provided either by the sheriff's department or private security, as they do at the other high schools and their own parking lots. And they have declined, saying that they do not have the resources to provide the security. So we did inform them that that was a deal breaker for us, and that if they could not provide the security, then we would have to physically close the park to the high school drivers. We did present this plan to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board in May, and they unanimously approved of us proceeding with the plan.
What was their response?
The school system said they cannot provide security. They don't have the funding to do it. And we said, we're going to have to close the park to the students if you can't provide that. And they said, okay. So the plan is to install a sign at the entrance to the park informing the students that parking is prohibited and they would be subject to towing. We will also install a gate so that we can, when our staff gets there at 7:30 in the morning, they'll close that gate. Kids tend to get to school between 10 till 8 to about 8:15. So we're going to keep that gate closed until 8:15 each weekday morning. And we will put this plan in place prior to school starting at the end of the month.
Why 8:15? Why would you open it at 8:15?
Well, we don't want to inconvenience legitimate park goers, and so we want to open the gate as early as possible, but not so early that kids are still arriving at school.
Okay. How will you discern who is a park goer and who is a student?
We won't be able to do that, so we will just, again, have the gate closed until 8:15, and then we're installing signage. And this is a very wordy sign, but in consultation with the police department and legal, this is the language that needs to be used on the sign. And so again, that'll be at the park entrance.
Do students I know my grandson at Hoggard, he had to wait till like his junior year to get a parking permit on campus. And I assume that's a countywide school admin rule. So do these children that drive cars, do they have a sticker on their car?
The students who rightfully have a permit to park at Laney do have a hanger in their car.
But they have parking on the school ground.
That's right. And so what we think is happening is kids who either are not able to obtain a permit or they've lost their permit because they haven't kept their grades up or they're in some other kind of trouble, or they just don't want to pay the permit fee.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. That concludes the presentation. I'll try and answer any questions that you might have.
Well, you're going to have the same issue at Hoggard because I guess Cardinal Lane is gone now and they've been parking over there. You can see the goat path going in. Can you go back a couple of slides to the keep going, right there. So New Hanover County property is right behind Laney High School. Is that correct? That boundary, the green boundary there with the dot in the middle of it?
That's correct.
And I understood that at one time there was a power line of some sort that goes through that property.
There's a Duke easement.
It was about 90, I don't know, I forget how many acres.
Close to 90, including the park.
Why can't they park or have some sort, New Hanover County or the school system do something with that piece of property that's literally behind their property?
I'm not aware of any limitations as to why they couldn't look at that.
Because that is one of the biggest high schools, if not the biggest high school in the area, number one. Number two, maybe one of the biggest high schools in the state. I think it ranks in the top 10 in the state in regards to size. It's over 3,000, maybe pushing 4,000 students.
I'm not sure, but I think you're in the ballpark.
So you've got the land availability to be able to do something to accommodate the kids.
Yes, sir. It appears that way. There are also lots of businesses along North College Road there where I would think that potentially the school could enter into an agreement. I know there's a church down the road. You mentioned Hoggard. although Cardinal has gone away, Hoggard, I know, does contract with a few of the churches on Shipyard Boulevard and allows student parking there. So it seems that there would be options. I think this was just, for the students, the easiest place for them to go to.
Sure it is. I can see it. I would do the same thing. But it is creating some havoc there. But there's a fix there, but it comes with a cost.
Sure.
And unfortunately, they're either going to have to appropriate the funding to do it, or it's not going to happen. So just want to make certain that parents and people that are seeing this understand that there is a fix, but it's not going to be happening with us. We can't continue to allow this to happen in the park with the amount of parking that's going on there. It's impossible.
And two, it's just not very conducive. The first slide that I showed, we intentionally wanted to show you that there are vulnerable populations that are using this park.
Sure.
That are disabled, and, you know, they're parking right in front of that Miracle Field. We have seniors playing softball out there, so it's just not working out.
But I also feel for the kids too that are using it, and they need to go to school, and they're coming with their cars.
Absolutely.
And there's not enough parking. Maybe Ashley may be the only high school that has ample parking for their student population. The rest of them do not, and it's creating this kind of a problem. But that's a bigger issue that the school board and this county have to work out. But
Yes, sir.
that's my comments.
School is very aware that this is going to happen this month.
Yes, sir. We've
Okay.
verbally and in written documents let them
Okay.
know, both at the administrative level and at the high school.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Ms. Rumble.
You communicate this, do you copy the county, the commissioners?
Not the county commissioners, the school district, but I can certainly get a communication out to them as well.
I think you should, because they're going to be getting calls.
And going back to what Kevin brought up, I was on the first Legion Stadium Commission, and it was designed really to make everybody step up to the plate and pay their fair share, because we funded it right by ourselves for 40, 50 years, and it was all used by the school system. So I'd like to see a current accounting of how that is working out, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's all we have this
And
morning.
they get the red light camera money too.
Hey, I know that Tony sent out last week this issue with y'all evaluating the pay across the board for fire and police and for stormwater, I believe. He sent over a memo to
Correct.
everybody in respect to that. I've had some additional commentary. I think some of us have up here, maybe all of us have, from different people and different groups, especially fire and police. But I just, in addition to that, so make sure that all council members receive this information at the same time, is I just want to get some additional understanding in regards to any change that we've had in benefits that I've been not made aware of. The post-employment, especially in regards to health care benefits and how that relates to their benefit package. A benefit structure that included tenure and what that was about. Anything in respect to holiday pay or mandatory overtime. I understand that there's some concerns about the promotion and promotional boards. I know that was instituted, I think when Chief Evangelist was here, when we did the PERF report way back in 2004. I know that falls under the Civil Service Commission. I'd like to have a better understanding, because it's been quite some time since I've reviewed any of this stuff, as to how the Civil Service Commission works in regards to the promotional aspect of fire and police. I know that they're the only employment group that has that protection with the Civil Service Commission. How many police officers, what is the makeup of that board, how it's created. And that's about it. And that's about it. But all this stuff, it seems to me, is going to come with a cost. And I know that in November, when we start the budget process and we start having our budget meetings, maybe at one of those budget meetings, we can all sit down collectively, all 7 of us, to talk about some of these issues, because any kind of adjustment it's going to take in respect to pay or benefits or retirement is going to require some sort of cost. And this body up here is responsible for those costs. And I want to know exactly what those costs would be in any kind of an adjustment that we might have to make. I know that we hear this from time to time, especially from all of our employees, when there's adjustments made in the surrounding communities, whether it's county or city governments are making some adjustments to that. We always get back where these guys are getting more money, these guys are getting more money, the sheriff's department is making more money. And I want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples in regards to all of the benefits, not only what the pay is, but also what the benefit packages are, because I know that we require some of our employees, or most of our employees, to also set aside a certain amount for retirement. And I want to see what the flexibility is for those other municipalities that may not require that, because some people may say, I'd rather just have the money to put it in my pocket instead of setting it aside for retirement, to give us a look at that. But I want all of the council members to have that information. I haven't seen it in 20-some years, and I know this stuff changes from time to time. I just wanted to have a clear understanding that I'm comparing apples to apples when I'm talking to these individuals. Okay?
Sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. With that, yes, sir.
We have appointments committee meeting immediately after this meeting.
Very good. With that, we stand adjourned.